Hey Soloers, I'm Player 1 from Too Much Single Player, and this is the Magic Duels Battle for Zendikar game guide. This week I'll be covering new mechanics and themes. With the Battle for Zendikar, there are 5 new named mechanics: Devoid, Ingest, Awaken, Rally, and Converge. Devoid has no color and is a characteristic defining keyword ability which states that a card is colorless regardless of the colors on that card's mana cost. Because it is a characteristic defining ability, cards with Devoid are colorless at all times, including when not on the battlefield or outside of the game. However, Devoid does not change a card's color identity, which is defined as the combination of all colors indicated on that card. While functionally colorless, cards with Devoid are numbered according to the color of their casting costs. Cards with Devoid use frames that are variations of the transparent frame traditionally used for Eldrazi. The top part of the card features some color over a background based on the texture of the hedrons that once imprisoned the Eldrazi. This coloration is intended to aid deck building and gameplay. A card with Devoid is just colorless. It's not colorless and the color of mana in its mana cost. Other cards and abilities can give a card with Devoid color. If that happens, it's just the new color, not that color and colorless. Devoid works in all zones, not just on a battlefield. If a card loses Devoid, it will still be colorless. This is because effects that change an object's color, like the one created by Devoid, are considered before the object loses Devoid. Dominator Drone is a good example of a creature with both Devoid and Ingest. Ingest is a keyword ability that triggers when a creature with Ingest deals combat damage to a player. That player exiles the top card of his or her library, and the card that gets exiled does so face up. If a creature has multiple instances of Ingest, each triggers separately. If the player has no cards in his or her library when the Ingest ability resolves, nothing happens. That player won't lose the game until he or she has to draw a card from an empty library. Awaken N. Awaken is a keyword ability that provides an alternative cost. If a spell is cast for its Awaken cost, in addition to its other effects, it animates a land you control as a 0/0 elemental creature with N +1/+1 counters on it. From the comprehensive rules Battle for Zendikar, September 26, 2015, Awaken appears on some instants and sorceries. It represents 2 abilities: a static ability that functions while the spell with Awaken is on the stack, and a spell ability. The controller of a spell with Awaken chooses the target of the Awaken spell ability only if that player chose to pay the spell's Awaken cost. Otherwise, the spell is cast as if it didn't have that target. For an example of the Awaken mechanic, take a look at Sheer Drop. Rally is an ability word that gives an advantageous effect whenever an ally enters the battlefield. This is a tweak of the unnamed ally mechanic of the Zendikar block. Rally is an ability word introduced in Battle for Zendikar, which is tied to the ally creature type. It highlights abilities that trigger whenever an ally enters the battlefield under your control. Every time an ally enters the battlefield under your control, all your rally abilities will trigger. You can put those abilities onto the stack in any order. If an ally with a rally ability enters the battlefield under your control, at the same time as other allies, that ability will trigger once for each of those allies and once for the creature with the ability itself. Some examples of creatures with the rally ability are Lantern Scout and Hero of Goma Fada. Converge is an ability word that gives an advantageous effect for each color of mana used to cast the spell. Converge is an ability introduced in Battle for Zendikar, which highlights spells whose effects depend on the number of colors of mana you spend to cast them. The difference between the similars Sunburst and Converge is that the first is a keyword with a static ability, which is only permitted on creatures and artifacts, while Converge is an ability word which can go on non-permanent spells. Current rulings state that you're limited to the mana cost of each spell. You can't use more mana, colorless or not. If a spell with Converge on the stack is copied, it's just created on the stack. No mana was spent to cast the copy, so 0 colors of mana were spent to cast it. A remarkable mechanic is featured on Void Winnower, which cares about even converted mana cost. There are also 2 new creature types with Battle for Zendikar: Scions and Processors. Scion is an additional creature type for some Eldrazi tokens. Similar to spawns, Scions are colorless and have the ability to be sacrificed for mana. But unlike spawns, they are 1/1 instead of 0/1. Processor is the other additional creature type for some Eldrazi introduced in Battle for Zendikar. Each one has an ability that requires you to put your opponent's exiled cards into their graveyard for some effect. During design, this mechanic was known as digest, or process. Thanks so much for watching, Soloers. I really do hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter at TMSP_P1 to get updates as they come. Join me next week where I'll be talking about the characters involved in this expansion and showing you the 4th duel of the series. If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them below or message me directly.